Welcome to Leadership Reimagined. I'm your host, Cassie Crosby, and today I'm sitting down with author, speaker, and professional certified coach, Bradley James Davies. Today, we're going to talk about something that I just don't think gets enough airtime, and that topic is listening. So, in a world where leaders often feel the need to have all the answers, Bradley brings a fresh perspective. What if we listened instead? Bradley, I'm so excited to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Cassie. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So to get started, can you share a little bit about your journey, how you got here, and then how did listening become such a central part of your work?
Well, wow, my journey from Oscar Mayer Wienermobile driver, my first job out of college, to now decades later being a professional listener. It started working in the for-profit space and working for Oscar Mayer in marketing and PR, and then into the consulting world, and ultimately pivoted into international development and ultimately into education. And where I've spent a big chunk of my career in school leadership. And I joke that school years are like dog years. And when it comes to the COVID years, they were like brontosaurus years.
Yeah.
And those brontosaurus years accelerated my vision for pivoting in a new direction vocationally. And truly what happened towards the end of my leadership journey, I had an incredible experience with a leadership coach myself. One, it was really impactful for my own leadership and personal growth. But two, I thought, gosh, I would love to do this work. So during my last year of school leadership, I started my training program at Georgetown and then pivoted full time into being a strategic listening partner with leaders. And from that, started to really start to understand the value of listening as it pertains to all areas of life, and particularly leadership. And so now here I am. I'm a professional listener and in the process of writing my second book on listening.
Amazing. And, just to get a little bit more detail into listening and why it matters, how do you think about listening? And then why do you think it's so important for leaders to listen?
The way I think about listening is that listening is hearing plus intention. See, our brains are wired to hear well, but they're not wired to listen well. So I'll nerd out on some of the brain science here. So what I share often is what gets in the way of us listening well are both our brains and our buttons. And what do I mean by our buttons? Well, if something's pushing your buttons, let's talk about what's behind those buttons. And typically what's behind the buttons is our own baggage, our own personal journey baggage, and also that amazing thing called the amygdala, which is scanning our surroundings multiple times a moment, asking ourselves perpetually, are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? So in conversations, when our buttons are pushed, our insecurities are pushed, our fears, etc., that makes it difficult to listen. But also the brain science makes it difficult to listen. And, we think about listening being hearing plus intention. What gets in the way of that intentionality are these three numbers: 150, 300, and 3000. So again, forgive me for the brain science nerding out, but I think it's really important for someone who's committed to trying to listen better, understanding what's working against them is important. So here are these three numbers: 150, 300, 3000. First of all, 150, 150 words per minute. That's the amount of words human beings can speak.
Hmm.
Okay, 300. That's the number of words per minute a human can listen to. And we all know that to be true because when we listen to our podcast, most of your listeners right now are not listening to us on 1.0, or they're probably listening to us on 1.25 or 1.5 speed. We can listen a lot faster than we can speak. 3,000. That's the number of words per minute our brains are thinking.
Wow.
So there's a big disconnect there. I have 3,000 words going through my brain, and I can only get them through the hose, through the spigot at 150 words per minute. You being the listener are like, come on, let's get to it. It's like watching a cute little kindergartner tie their shoelaces. It's like, let's go, let's go. And meanwhile, you have capacity for 3,000 words per minute cognitively. So there's a big disconnect there, a big delta, and that's why your mind wanders. So we have a real challenge. So when I think about listening, it's hearing plus intention. Hearing, we're great at listening to that stick snap off in the distance, are we safe? It's just built into our genes and our evolution. But to pause with real intentionality, that's the trick of transitioning from hearing into listening. And ultimately, the goal of listening is more information and more intimacy, more content, more connection. And when we think about it in terms of leadership or our relationships, relationships with our romantic partners, relationships with our children, relationships with our coworkers, our teams, more information and more intimacy, bringing the team together and bringing out all the great ideas. That is what's at stake with our listening skills.
That's why I often say to my husband, all right, get to the point, Like, I'm there already.
It's your brain working against you.
Yeah.
It is your brain working against you, 100%.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that we are our biggest barrier.
Our brains and our buttons, our brains and our baggage gets in the way of our ability to truly connect with this other soul sitting in front of us or sitting at the leadership table with us. We got a lot working against us. Yeah. We are fundamentally wired to look for danger and hear for danger, not to listen for deeper meaning and deeper connection.
If we're not listening well, what's the cost, on our teams and our organizations, our personal lives? What's the cost of poor listening?
I think it's incredible. And here's a fundamental challenge for me as a writer and speaker on behalf of listening, is that most of us walk around doing our days not fearing we're not a good enough listener, because we're all pretty good hearers. We don't think we have a problem. There's a big thing I call the listening lie. And the listening lie is the lie we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves, I'm a pretty good listener, when in reality, we are not. Oscar Trimboli wrote this really helpful book called How to Listen. And in it, he cites a study where they surveyed a bunch of employees from English-speaking companies, Fortune 500 companies, and a bunch of different questions. But one of them that pertains to listening is they rated themselves. Self-rating. How do you rate yourself as a listener? 75%, 74.9% rated themselves as average to above average listeners. A few more even rated themselves as exceptional listeners. So 75% of us, if we can trust this data, which I think we can, 75% of us walk around the planet thinking we're pretty good at listening. Well, then they were asked to rate their colleagues. 13%. They rated 13% of their colleagues as average to above average listeners. Again, there's a big delta there.
Yeah.
So the listening lie is we think we're good at listening, but we're not. So what's the cost of that? Well, we don't often get to see the results of not listening well. If we don't speak well, we can feel the results. Our heart's beating, we're nervous, we're shaking, we screw up the sales call and we don't see the sales, etc. It's hard to see the real results of not listening well. But here's what I proffer as the real cost. One, broken relationships. It's not about the plates. It's not about the plates. Sweetheart, what else? Sweetheart, what's going on? Broken relationships. Listening well helps us get to the heart of the matter. And at the heart of the matter, our hearts connect and our hearts come together. What's at stake in the business world? Wow, think of a leadership funnel that requires 10 calls. Well, if you can learn to listen well, you can slice that in half to 5 calls. You're more efficient both on the investment of time to convert the sale, and you're more efficient in terms of how many sales you yield. You think of the hunters and the farmers, right? The sales folks who go out and hunt the new business, and then those client managers who are the farmers who are cultivating and seeking to expand sales, land and expand. Gosh, you train those folks on listening. And now they're starting to understand more deeply what the client really needs, not just pushing the product. So now they're providing real authentic feedback from clients in terms of the need and the pressure points for product development, et cetera. Wow, what's that cost? I mean, that's the scale there is millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. Then think about it, particularly in the work that I do with leaders, is at the leadership table. What's the cost of not listening well? Particularly, what's the cost of speaking first? If you and I are at a leadership table and the CEO comes in and she says, hey, I've got this new idea, this new vertical, ABC new vertical, I think it's going to be incredible. Well, let's say you and I think it's a really horrible idea. That leader has placed us in a very complicated power dynamics place.
Mm.
Are we going to voice our disagreement with her in front of the entire leadership team? That's a big ask. She'll want us to because she's confident and she cares about us and she really wants pushback. That's a big ask. What if she learns to listen and instead of making statements, begins to ask questions? And what if she starts to think about leadership not from the front, that the great leaders are the font of all the best ideas, but instead the great leaders are those that cultivate a culture that brings forth the best ideas? Well, the only way to do that is to ask high quality questions, to close our mouths and create space for listening. So that same scenario, she comes in, she may have an idea of this new vertical, but instead of offering it and then inviting feedback, she might say, hey, I'm curious, what ideas do we have at the table around new verticals? Well, now our colleague Jenny voices an idea, and it's the same vertical that the CEO had just in the back of her head. And you actually think that's a great idea. And I'm actually like, huh, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, now the CEO, because of her high quality questioning and her next level listening skills, has created buy-in, has brought forth new ideas. Boom, her idea is off and running with more buy-in. But better yet, another one of our colleagues, or let's say Cassie, she voices an idea for a new vertical. That's an idea that our CEO hadn't even thought of. And that's an idea everybody starts thinking, wow, Cassie, that's a great idea. Oh my gosh, I was thinking the same thing. Well, now we have a whole new idea with a bigger impact, huge profits, et cetera, that the CEO didn't even have in the first place. So what's the cost of not listening well? It's difficult to quantify, but when we start to think about it in individual cases, pillow talk between two lovers, leadership teams around new ideas, we can start to see, wow, the fact that we're not listening well is coming at a huge cost. And don't even get me into global politics and brokering peace and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the cost of not listening well? I think it's just immense.
Yeah. And how do I know if I'm truly listening or if I'm just hearing people?
Oh, it's a really good question. So one of the things I teach is a concept we actually teach to kindergartners. And that concept is three then me.
Mm.
Three then me. So kindergartners start each morning in kindergarten circle. It's like the cutest thing ever. And they're taught we need to listen, make sure we hear three of our friends before we offer our own opinion. So one, particularly in team meeting context, be mindful of how often you're speaking. I encourage clients even kind of keep a secret tally to have a sense of, are you waiting long enough? And here's the joke I offer is that if you're not sure who on your leadership team violates three then me, you're probably the person that
Yeah.
violates three then me. Like you're the one,
Yeah.
you're the over talker. And also another way to kind of empirically know is the 80-20 rule. So a lot of us have heard the aphorism of we have two ears and one mouth. So listen twice as much as you speak, which is fantastic. The bummer is if you fall short of two ears, one mouth, you're kind of only listening. I don't know the math, but 25%, let's say someone out there is listening. They're like, is that really 25%? I don't know. I'm a writer, not a
Don't ask me.
mathematician.
I'm also not a mathematician.
Right. Leave it in the comments below, friends.
Yeah.
Let us know how bad our math is. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I offer is a new standard, and that's the 80-20 rule. Be it leadership team with your partner, particularly if like a partner or a friend, a child brings you a concern,
Yeah.
you should only be speaking 20% or less of the time. You should be listening 80% or more of the time. Now, if we all sought to do that and fell short of that standard, we would settle on the two ears and one mouth. And that would still make a better world, better homes, better businesses, etc. So that's a great way to know, am I hearing or am I listening? And what I offer is an acronym, WAIT, WAIT. And I invite clients, write it on the top of your notes during a leadership team meeting. Have it be a visual reminder to yourself. Wait, why am I talking? Truly, folks ask me, just how can I become a better listener? Well, step number one is close your mouth. Literally stop talking. Literally stop talking. So those are two ways to kind of know, am I just hearing or am I listening? The 80-20 rule and also this kind of cute concept we teach kindergartners. 3 than me.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so often leaders have a pressure on them. They feel like they have to have all the answers, like they have to prove themselves. And part of proving themselves is being the one with the best idea, the right answer, what have you. But, what do you think is possible if we all just listened a little better?
So I'm flirting with a bunch of subtitles for my new book.
Mm.
And my current favorite, it would be a world record for length in terms of subtitles. Um, and so it's a little absurd, but it basically goes like this: how to make more money, have better sex, improve your relationships, become closer with your kids, and broker world peace over a long weekend. So, what's possible? What's at stake for the world? I think everything. When I look back at my own journey and the numerous failures I've had, at the heart of all of them was a lack of really effective listening. Again, my brain and my own buttons, my own baggage was to blame. But at the heart of everything we do is connecting as sapiens, connecting as people. And so I really feel I've joined a movement. I like to call it a revolution. I've joined a movement of next level listening that began when we as a species gathered around fire for the first time and started sharing stories, has extended to when Aristotle gathered folks around and started wrestling with, the most complex questions of consciousness and conscience, and extends today to some, really impressive folks trying to advocate for listening. You Google become a better communicator, and all of these public speaking courses come up. How to say the next best thing, how to be heard. And my invitation is that at the heart of the healing of the human journey is all of us seeking to be better listeners. So what's at stake? Everything, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something in listening that leads us to connection. Like that
Mm.
listening is a critical part of connection because, right, finding those similarities and finding the places that humans naturally connect. We only do that if we listen to people and their desires and their hopes and their dreams, and their ideas.
There's this there's this cool bridge in downtown Pittsburgh, and a graffiti artist has written a bunch of compelling quotes on it. I'm sure it annoys some people, but as I would jog across this bridge, I loved them. And one of the quotes is, "When all is understood, all will be forgiven." So I think of your journey with someone close to you and the hurts that have come along the way. I mean, anyone listening to this, be it a long friendship, a long partnership, a journey with their own children, there's ups, downs, and all arounds. There are hurts, real hurts. No one gets through life without hurts. And when we think of reconciliation, be it in our homes, across people groups, geopolitically, why do they want to hurt us? Why do we want to hurt them? At the end of the day, through real compassionate listening, tell me your story and I'll tell you mine. Your hurts
Mm.
and I'll tell you mine. And at the end of that conversation, there is more peace, there is more healing. When all is understood, all will be forgiven. So, yeah, when we think of how improved listening skills can impact our individual lives, and then, of course, the lives of billions of people on the planet, I think it's immense. I think it's absolutely immense.
Yeah. And I've had clients who hired professional mediators, to help resolve conflicts within their organizations. And really, I think if you think about mediation and what's happening in those rooms, you're really paying someone to do that heavy lifting, right? To listen and to make space for all parties involved, to find, places where there are shared interests.
I agree. And also in the space you and I are really honored to occupy and being
Yeah.
executive leadership coaches, to be a strategic thought partner with a leader, particularly in a space I'm not an expert in. What what value could I add to a tech CEO when I have a hard time right clicking, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I can offer is my training in asking high quality questions. And what he or she has then is the opportunity to take those 3,000 words per minute, banging around in their brains, and a safe space to get all those meatballs out on the table. Otherwise, you ruminate, ruminate, ruminate. It keeps you up at night. But
Hmm.
within an executive coaching space or a mediation space, or in the space of two partners or mother and child who are really intentional about their listening and offering high quality questions and honoring the 80-20 rule, well, that's when we get these 3,000 words per minute out of our brains, out of the cognitive dryer going round and round and round,
Hmm.
out in front of us. That's the gift of next level listening. Not only do I get to learn more about Cassie, Cassie gets to learn more about herself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so often people just say, like, the real value is just feeling heard, which, it always surprises me that, people are willing. I don't want to say it surprises me that people are willing to spend money to be heard, but that just shows you that there really is like real perceived value there, particularly for leaders who don't necessarily have a peer group or have people they can go to talk about some of the stuff they bring to us.
That value of just being heard resonates across all the research, all the books I'm reading on listening,
Yeah.
and it resonates, of course, with their own personal experience. What I offer is an encouragement to let the silence do the heavy lifting.
Mm.
So I'm going to stumble on the exact data here, but I read recently a study where they measured different cultures' comfort levels with silence. And the data is staggering. I believe it's Americans are comfortable with 0.6 seconds of silence. 0.6. And I might be off by a little bit, but it's absurdly fast.
Yeah.
And the best in the world are the Japanese at 0.9. But that delta,
Wow.
although it's significant in terms of conversations and business negotiations, connections between loved ones, etc. But my gosh, if we can, through our discipline, through our intentionality, remember, listening is hearing plus intention. If we can elongate that silence, I joke, period double space, like I'm old school, not period single space, like I'm old school, period double space. Just wait. As leaders, as lovers, as parents, that
Mm.
space, there's going to be more to offer. There's going to be
Yeah.
more to offer. The initial challenge a loved one offers you is not the real challenge. There is more coming. Remember, there's 3,000 words per minute trying to get through that spigot of 150. So that gift of just being heard, that gift of holding space of silence is a game changer and is one of the best ways to start to move the needle in the right direction in terms of your listening skills. If you just commit to trying to do period double space, wait,
Yeah.
it feels a little awkward. Wait just a bit longer. I can almost guarantee you your loved one, your colleague, etc., is going to offer more information.
Yeah, when I first started coaching, I would count to six, like in my head, because, it did feel uncomfortable at first. And what I found over the years is that I don't have to do that anymore, obviously. But I think, for leaders who are trying to listen better, sometimes just having a little, like you said, technique, whether that's period double space, counting to five, just giving that extra time. And what I found when I was doing that is usually around 3 or 4 seconds, that's when people start talking again. But so often, like you said, as Americans, we just jump to that next thought that we have rather than giving that space for someone else to, do the thinking and come up with the next thought.
Love that hack. And full confession, I still do it with my clients. Like
Yeah.
you and I are professional listeners. We listen every day, which is such a gift, right? That we get to
Mhm.
sit with folks in these sacred spaces. And even though I do this every day, I still feel, I mean, it's like everything in my DNA wants to say something. I'm a big pep talker. Like I want to like cheer someone on. So I still have to, like you, I try to count to 10. And one of my hacks that I offer folks is, a big part of listening is high quality questions. And we can get into that that's interesting to you, but one of the best questions you can offer anyone is 2 words. What else?
Yeah.
What else? So oftentimes when I'm with a client and I'm trying to let the silence do the heavy lifting and I'm feeling this urge to interject with something, a great hack to bridge and kind of elongate or extend the silence is just to say, what else? If you want to add some intimacy to it, you add the person's name, Cassie. What else? I think relationships around the globe, be they romantic or otherwise, could be ameliorated immediately by just saying, sweetheart, what else?
Yeah.
That helps that sound because
And
there's
there's
more to be
always
said.
something else.
3,000.
Yeah.
There is. There is. You've, I mean, I forget where, maybe it was on our Georgetown training, but someone said it takes, 7 high quality questions to get to the heart of the matter. 7 high quality questions to kind of peel back the layers of the onion to get to the heart of the matter. It's never about the plates, about something
Yeah.
deeper.
Wow. I have a final question for you. If the whole world could slow down enough to just listen, what do you think we all need to hear?
Hmm. What I would love for everyone to be able to hear to the depth of their soul is that in some miraculous way that I can't quite put my finger on rationally. Some would argue that I'm irrational in saying it. I would embrace a trans-rational approach and just say this is how I'm wired. But I would think, I would hope that the whole world could really hear to the depth of their soul that in some miraculous way they are loved unconditionally. And what if we talked about, our brains and our buttons getting in the way of good listening? What's behind our buttons, our dysfunctions, our baggage? It's this fear. Our little boy selves, our little girl selves, just wreaking havoc on our adult lives. And somehow, at my best, I feel safe. I feel loved. Um, and so that's what I would hope the whole world could hear.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that.
And I know it sounds, like so ideal. Oh, love is everything. And it is. And I don't
Yeah.
care how tough you are. At the end of the day, we're a bunch of little boys and little girls masquerading as adult people. And I think
Yeah.
love is transformative.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you and follow you? I know you're working on your book coming out sometime in the near future. Where can people follow your work?
Yeah, thank you. So my website's www.bradleyjamesdavies.com. Instagram, I think, is bradley.james.davies. And then, of course, on LinkedIn as well. So, yeah, I'd love to connect with your folks and be helpful in any way I can.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm excited for the book and thank you for the conversation. This was great.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. I really enjoyed it.